In this video, we'll explore one of the most important parts of programming, making decisions in your code. In JavaScript, we do that by using conditional statements. We'll start with the basic if statement, then learn how to use else, and finally see how to chain multiple conditions together with else if or the switch statement. Let's get started. Before we jump into the code, don't forget to hit subscribe and like. That really helps the channel grow and keeps me motivated to make more beginner-friendly videos. Thanks a lot. What are conditionals? Conditionals are like crossroads in your code. They let your program decide what to do depending on a certain condition. For example, if it's raining, take an umbrella. If it's sunny, wear sunglasses. In JavaScript, we use the if keyword to create that kind of logic. So let's write our first conditional. Take a look at this example. What's happening here? First, we are checking if 5 is greater than 3. Since this is true, the code inside the curly braces runs. Let's run this code and check the console. And yes, it prints 5 is greater than 3. Now what if we want to write code only if the condition is false? The else keyword is used for this case. Let's have a look at an example again. This time, the condition inside the if is false, because 5 is not less than 3. So JavaScript skips that block and runs the else block instead. So when we run the code, we will see, nope, 5 is not less than 3. So basically else lets us handle the opposite case. But sometimes we need to check multiple conditions in a row. That's where else if comes in. Here's an example, and let's break it down. If the score is 90 or more, we print you got an A. If it's not 90, but at least 80, we print you got a B. If not that either, but at least 70, we print you got a C. And finally, if none of the conditions match, we print you need to study more. In our case, the score is 85, so the message will be you got a B. Let's run the code and check the console. And as you can see, it works exactly as expected. So let's change score to 72 and run it again. And as you can see, you got a C is printed to the console this time. We can also use conditionals with strings. Here we declare a variable called name and set it to Alice. Then we have some conditionals checking the name variable and printing a message depending on the value of the variable. Please note the single equals is used for assignments, like giving a variable a new value, while the triple equals is used to compare values. That means if the value of the name variable is Bob, the first condition would be true, and the code in the curly brackets runs. But here the name is Alice, so we will see Hey Alice in the console when we run the code. Sometimes we want to check more than one condition at the same time. For that, we use logical operators. Here are the two most common ones. The logical AND means that all the subconditions must be true for the whole condition to be true. And the logical OR just require one single subcondition to be true for the whole condition to be truthy. Let's make this clear with an example. Imagine we are building a chat app and we have two pieces of info. Is online, which means whether the user is online or not, and has new message. That means whether they have a new unread message or not. We want to show a chat pop-up only if the user is online and has a new message. Both conditions must be true. So let's run the code, and as you can see, the message show message pop-up is printed to the console, because both boolean variables are true. Now let's change is online to false and run the code again. Now the result is no pop-up needed, because the user isn't online, so we don't show the pop-up even if they have a message. Now let's say we want to play a notification sound if the user is online or has a new message. Even one of these is enough to trigger the sound. So let's run the code, and as you can see, play notification sound is printed to the console. Even if is online is false, because the logical OR requires only one subcondition to be true. And now we set both to false and run the code again, and now you can see that the message no notifications is printed, because both are false. We can also put an if statement inside another if statement. This is called nesting. Take a look at this example. First, we check if the person is at least 18 years old. If yes, we check if they have a ticket. Depending on both checks, we print different messages. Try running the code and changing the values to see different results. Now that you know how to use if, else if, and else, let's look at another way to handle multiple conditions. The switch statement is useful if you want to compare one value against many possible options. It's just like a list of else if cases. Let's say we are building a simple settings menu. Here's how we might write it with else if. This works fine, but it gets long if we have to add more options along the way. Now let's rewrite the same thing using switch. We write the switch keyword followed by the value we want to check, in this case theme. Then we list different case values to match. If the value matches a case, the code under it runs. Break tells JavaScript to stop checking more cases after a match. And default runs if none of the cases match, just like the final else. If we change theme to blue, it will print blue theme selected. And if we set it to something unknown like green, we'll get unknown theme. But when should we use the switch statement? You should use it when you're checking one variable against many fixed values, and if the values are simple, like strings or numbers. And also if you want your code to look clean and easy to scan. If your conditions involve comparisons, like greater than or less than, then it's better to stick with if and else if. So now let's quickly go over what we've learned in this video. If lets us run code when a condition is true. Else runs code when the condition is false. Logical operators like and or combine conditions. We can also nest if statements for more complex logic. The switch statement is used for a more convenient way to write large if-else statements. Conditionals are everywhere in JavaScript, and now you know how to use them. That's it for this video. If you like this tutorial, hit like and subscribe to see more beginner-friendly JavaScript content. If you have any questions, leave a comment below. So thank you for watching and see you in the next one. Bye!